Recently, there are a series of protests against Japan's move in releasing contaminated water from Fukushima. About 500 fishermen from Jeollanam-do, including the Changheung-gun's Fishermen's Association, held up a protest to urge the Japanese government to withdraw the discharge. The fishermen even mobilized 50 ships to hold protests on the sea. To explain everything in more detail, we've brought here an expert in Japanese affairs. Hello, Professor Lee. Can you explain what this is all about? Absolutely. The Fukushima Contaminated Water Disclosure Plan is a plan to release water that was generated during the Fukushima nuclear accident, which happened in March 2011. This was caused due to the damage in the reactor. This contaminated water is generated constantly and is considered very dangerous due to its radioactive materials. Currently, the capacity limit for storing contaminated water around the Fukushima nuclear power plant site is reached, and the problem of properly treating contaminated water is being raised. Therefore, Japan announced a discharge plan in April 2022 to treat the contaminated water in a safe manner. The discharge plan is to dilute contaminated water into pure water, treat it at a harmless level, and discharge it into the ocean. The Japanese government is committed to working with international organizations, such as the International Atomic Energy Agency, in a safe and transparent manner. However, these release decisions are controversial and drawing attention from the international community and within Japan. Especially Korea, which is located right next to Japan, shows great concerns. According to a survey by Hanguk Daily, 84% of the citizens disagree to the government's support of releasing contaminated water in the ocean. Can you tell us more about what triggered citizens in showing negative responses to the government's decision? It all started when President Yoon proposed a third-party compensation scheme for South Korean victims of forced labor during the Japanese colonial era. This helped alleviate the financial burden that some Japanese companies had. However, it also led to citizens' increased distrust of the government, since most Koreans wanted appropriate actions to be taken by the Japanese government when dealing with history. As resolving historical conflicts is crucial for bilateral reconciliation, it is concerning that an overwhelming amount of Koreans distrust the Japanese in atoning for their historical wrongings. Despite the abundance of apologies given by Japanese top officials, there have been just as many cases where the Japanese sanitized their colonial history. Then how do you think the Korean government should react in bridging the gap between the Japanese government and Korean citizens? The first thing that the government should do is to facilitate a compensation method that respects the opinions of the victims of forced labor and also their families. Given that President Yoon's proposed compensation method does not require Japanese companies to contribute to the fund, Yoon must ask the Japanese government to actively encourage Japanese companies for donations. Next, President Yoon must request the Japanese government to officially establish its acknowledgement of past wrongdoings. The Japanese government's acceptance of legal liability for wartime atrocities would also be a decisive step towards reconciliation. Finally, both governments should adopt a transparent process of domestic consensus building. This should include various stakeholders from Korean society, not only the governmental level. It would ensure the government and the citizens that improving bilateral relations is not only the president's individual ambition. Thanks, Professor Lee, for joining us. I hope consensus will be made soon as possible. This was News Today. Thank you.